Hey everyone, it's me, and today I just kind of want to talk about some of the observations I've had when looking at our new resource called energy. Now, this is very, very early, right? Very early, of course. Not all the cards have been released from the new set, which is Fated Clash coming out in soon, the new Divine Z set. But some cards have been revealed, and just kind of want to talk about them and talk about how it might impact the game. Of course, things can definitely change, right, as more cards are revealed, especially the big boss cards. But let's kind of just talk about energy for now. So first off, we have the energy generator. We have to talk about this, right? Because it's the main mechanic being released, the main new resource being released. Basically, this is a crest that we all get when we ride from the ride deck. Whatever. Basically, it's standard. This is standard, pretty much standard early at the moment. And you basically just gain 3 energy every turn until a maximum of 10, right? If you 10 is the max, and then if you went second, you get 3 energy. But then during the ride phase, at the beginning of the ride phase, you'll also energy charge. So basically, if you go first, you start with 0 energy, and next turn you'll get 3, and turn after that you get 6. You'll have 6 unless you use some. But if you went second, you'll start off with 3. So it's to give you a bit of an advantage, right? And you have a base effect, which is just once per turn. You can energy blast 7 and draw a card. So if you went first, you'll have to wait 3 turns before you can draw a card. Or if you went second, you only have to wait 2 turns, right? So that's basically the gist of it. It's like soul, right? You have energy charge, which is like soul charge, until a maximum of 10, right? But let's kind of look at some of the cards that kind of use energy and how it looks like, right? So first off, we have the very generic card. We can talk about the economy of energy, right? Now, what is the economy? What is like resource economy? Let's kind of think about it. The most basic resource we have in Vanguard is Counterblast, and Counterblast 1 usually equals like draw card or a +1, right? So that's kind of the really easy way to talk about for energy. In the past, right, like a Soul Blast 2 equals a draw. If you remember those like 5k guys that came into play, Soul Blast 2 draw a card. The biggest difference between Counterblast and all the other resources is that there is interaction in Counterblast, right? Counterblast is the only resource that you can technically deny. Though you could say, Seraph denies Soul, but, it's kind of like a specific case, right? But if I don't want to give you Counterblast, I can just choose not to attack you, right? And then you also have a choice if you want to get Counterblast, because you can guard. So there's that. But that is the most baseline, like, kind of resource economy we can talk about. Energy has kind of the same thing if we're looking at some of the cards. So this is the light elemental Poplar that is just like an elemental, Cray elemental. You look at here, it's when it's placed on the Regard Circle or the Guardian Circle, you get Energy Blast 2, and it gets Power 5k and Shield 5k, right? So we kind of have the idea of, like, Energy Blast 2 equals a plus 5k in a shield power. And we can kind of look at the other cards that have been released, like Steam Gunner Tizcar, right? So when this card is placed, when this unit is placed on the Guardian Circle from hand or discarded from hand while riding from the ride deck, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. So this is, again, very simple. You can Counterblast 1 to draw a card, which is a very baseline effect. Or you can Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. So we kind of have, like, the idea where Energy Blast 2 equals power gain or shield gain. And Energy Blast 3 equals a +1, right? And it does have another effect here where you can, like, Counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 3 to Soul Charge 1 until the end of turn gets boost and power plus 5,000. That's a bit more esoteric. Is it worth it for a CB1? That's up to you to decide. Is it worth the Energy Blast 3? That's up to you to decide too. But let's kind of look at other cards too. So again, the Serum or Brave Shield, we saw this recently. This is, again, a triple R, right? This is one of the more generic cards from the set. Again, it has that first effect where you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. And then here, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to choose a grade 2 or less normal unit with different card name from this unit, and without Sentinel from drop, or an order card from your drop, and put into your hand, and then you choose a card from your hand and discard it. So it's not really a +1, but again, for Stoicadex, getting an order back would be pretty broken, especially for something like Zorgar, where missing an order for Alchemagic means you lose, but this will maybe win you the game. So a bit of an esoteric effect too. But let's kind of look at other cards that are less esoteric, right? More straightforward. So, Desire Devil Alacray, right? When this unit is placed on the Regard Circle during your main phase, Energy Blast 3, choose a unit card with Desire Devil in its card name and different from this unit. from install and call it to the rearguard circle. So a straight +1 for an Energy Blast 3. This is different because it's just calling unit. It's the same thing. You get another body on the field for an Energy Blast 3. And next is Gorgio, right? This item of Gorgio. So when this unit is put into the rearguard circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Greedon in its card name, Energy Blast 3, and put this card into your hand. So again, very similar to the cycle effects, the generic energy cycle effects, where you put on the Guardian Circle and you Energy Blast and draw a card. This is kind of the same when it's put into the rearguard from Soul into Soul, right? You get Energy Blast 3 to put this in hand, so you get a card, right? So there we go. And then I think probably the most straightforward way to just kind of see and confirm how the energy costs are is just like, for example, I think these are kind of generic across most of the nations. So Keen Prodigy Yushan, this is for Dark States. So when this unit boosts, if your soul has 5 or more cards, Counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 2 to draw a card, and this unit gets plus 5,000 to end the turn. So CB1 is a draw, Energy Blast 2 is a plus 5k. So we have a baseline for basically the energy resource. Energy Blast 2 is your plus 5k power gain or shield gain, and then Energy Blast 3 is a plus 1. So let's kind of talk about like what kind of things do you see that is like kind of spread across, like similar in all these situations, right? And you can pause here to have a guess. So if you look at the cost for these cards, you can either choose between a Counterblast 1 or an Energy Blast 3. I'm sure there's a lot of other things similar, but this is the one thing I'm going to talk about today, because it's actually very, very significant, right? So first, let's talk about Counterblast. First, Counterblast is this limiting, it's something that your opponent can deny in a way to prevent you from doing things, right? And why would you ever Counterblast deny your opponent? That is because if you're falling behind, right, if your hand is terrible, or if they have a huge, strong gimmick, or they're a very aggressive deck, you don't want to give them Counterblast, because when they have Counterblast, they can use effects, right? And they could range anything from plussing 1 to gaining like a lot of power, or both, or all of the above. And when you're behind, doing this Counterblast deny play is very, very important, because if your opponent's aggressive deck, they eventually run out of steam, right? They need CB to plus, right? Unless they have ways to do it from Soul. CB1 also equals like things like restand. If you like full blast, it's like do a billion things. If they don't have CB, it means you have a chance to play the game a bit longer and get back into the game, especially if your deck has a very strong late game, like something like Dreduled, Ignis, etc, etc. So, Counterblast denying is very important, right? You'll have situations where your opponent puts up like 1 rearguard, and then your correct play in the early game would be to attack from Vanguard to rear, kind of stem the bleeding, and then your opponent will, play maybe more cards later, or they might decide not to. But if they go full crazy mode and commit like a whole front row, then I think usually the choice is clear, right? Especially if you're a slower deck. But you'll be attacking rears, denying damage. That means your opponent has less hand later on. They're less inclined to throw down even more cards. But if they do, it's like a gamble where they're throwing away like basically everything later on in order to try to do some more damage. And then you have targets that you can also retire or attack into. And it's just a very standard flaw of the game, right? Now things like Cyclers kind of change that. They'll add a few more cards into hand for Soul. But this kind of also is that, right? So right now, Energy Blast 3 to draw a card means that they don't need a CB to plus. So you can say like, well, read the effect, right? This card works on the Guardian Circle. So you can, when you're guarding your opponent's attacks, you can Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. But this, when you're attacking, right? When you're an attacker, you also want to defend too, right? You can use this card to defend your cards on the field that have been used for attacking to draw more cards, right? And you don't have to pay CB1 for it. You just have to Energy Blast 1, guard it, draw a card, and you have more options to play next turn. I guess the most important thing is that there's no advantage right now in terms of being defensive. Like the Light Elemental, for example, an Energy Blast 2, right, gains you 5k or shield. So like it's not like 5k power or 10k shield, which would mean that defending against early game attacks is very useful. Right now, it's still, both sides are balanced. But being an aggressor and getting extra cards, I think has a lot more value than being the defender and getting more cards. And in terms of like, just for example, back to the scenario where you're damaged, you're denying your opponent damage, so you stem the bleeding, and they have less resources to put on the field so they can attack you. But when they're getting these extra cards, they will be getting these resources to continually attack you. If aggression gets stronger because of this, then I think, you know, we're going to need way more defensive options, or we're going to rely more on that damage check trigger kind of deal that happens right now already against very aggressive decks. But I guess one of the things from this as well is that a lot of the collab decks pre-Divine Z, I think this gets nerfed a lot too, right? Because they won't have, unless you're just running like totally generic elemental cards in the deck, they won't actually have cards that, you know, use these alternate energy costs that can just make like better lines or get better aggression early on. So something like a Miger, right? Unless they get Energy Miger, they just naturally get nerfed because they just won't have these extra options, in my opinion. So yeah, that's I guess that's something to maybe it's a good thing, right? Maybe it's a good thing. And in the future, I'm guessing we need to have like energy, like charge cards as well that will allow you to do more things. So it's all up in the future. It's just kind of an early observation. If there's like more Energy Blast 3 cards like this that allow, you know, that don't really favor, I guess, the attacker or the defender. I guess just attacking early on is just going to be better because you'll be less punished from it, right? Cards generated early on are just have more value technically. It's not like, it's not a physical number, right? It's not like a plus 1.5. It's still a plus 1, but just having more cards early on means you have more options, and that means they have more value than, you know, cards gained later on. So if you be able to play aggressive, you get value from your cards and still have a decent hand. That's better than, like, you know, playing aggressive and not having a hand. Just a quick thought on energy, just a quick observation regarding that. I don't know how the future will hold. We'll find out in the next couple of weeks, but yeah, it might be a huge change in the game, right? Might not. The Divine skill cards might say something like Energy Blast 10, so if you've been spending all your energy early on, then you can't use them, but we'll see. Like, we'll see. Let me know in comments what you think of energy, right? And the current implications that we've seen from it. I think we get Wellstra like next week, right? So we get to see one of the big cards next week. So I think that might just change this whole discussion. But that's just my quick thoughts on it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next video. All right, bye.